Hey guys, Alycia Burton here, owner of Alycia Burton Free Riding. A little bit about me: every year I speak to tens of thousands of people. I'm a professional performer in the horse world. I've done a lot of breaking in, re-breaking. I've taught more than 2,500 lessons, and I've been touring 3 countries now for just over 3 years. So my heart and really what I've dedicated my life to is working with young people, helping them to heal from their past, helping them to discover their passion, their talent, their dreams, and how they can go and live a life on purpose, regardless of their background, the family that they're born into, financial situation, things that have happened in the past. And I get really, really excited about young people succeeding. That's really what I'm all about. So one of the things that are going to sabotage our success faster than anything is us losing control of our emotions. And we've already had the 2 wolf talk and how these emotions become so strong and so overpowering. And really when people are like, I just couldn't help it. Like, why did you just blow up at your friend? I just couldn't help it. Why did you just attack your horse? I just couldn't help it. And I'm going to use a lot of horse kind of crossovers because I'm a professional rider and most of my audience are horse riders as well. And it is so valid. And so I'm going to give you an example. Like, I've taught thousands of people, and one of the first things that I will ask people in my lessons before we start riding is hands up those who regularly get angry at their horse. And I don't just mean like they get frustrated. I mean like they get angry, they emotionally outburst, or they physically outburst. And can I tell you that like 98% of hands go up. And the other ones, I would argue that they're just not telling the truth. And then my next question to them is, how many people love their horse? And all of the hands go up. And so I just want to separate that just because you love someone or you love something or you love an animal doesn't mean that you're not going to abuse the trust and to be able to control your emotions around them. Doesn't mean you're always going to do right. And the thing is, we don't normally go losing it at strangers. If you are like, stop. But we normally end up treating people around us the worst, and that's because we get away with it, you know, and it's doing a lot of damage. So prevention is better than cure, and that's really my whole motto with horse riding. And so anytime for me a horse emotionally blows or a rider emotionally blows, it's a really clear sign that they're riding at a level beyond what they're really ready for at the time, because we've entered into chaos. Okay, so there's a little saying, and I actually heard this from Warwick Schiller, who got it from a dancer, and I've twisted it up a tiny bit, not like twisted in a bad way, but I've applied it to the jumping world. And I'll talk about this more in my jumping DVD that I'm about to edit. But basically, the beginner rider is often trying to ride at an intermediate level. And the jumping world, this is higher and it is faster and more technical than what the rider and horse have truly trained for, and as a result they will have chaos. So chaos could be the horse rushing, it could be them backing off, going sideways, crashing jumps, and it could be them just mentally being freaked out, overstimulated, their emotions are on high and they're not coping. The same with the rider, okay? Rider getting left behind, riding terrified, clenched muscles. And then the intermediate rider, okay, is often trying to ride at an advanced level. And again, this is much higher, faster, and more technical than what they've truly trained for, and as a result they have chaos. Again, the same things. And then the advanced rider, all right, they are all the way back at the beginning perfecting the basics, and they will only move on once they have perfected that basics. And I'm not going to go too deep into that into that, but part of what that professional rider does, all right, because I have another talk on this with actual horse training and how we do that. But part of it is recognizing where the emotions of the horse are running and the energy of those emotions. If down here is 0 and up here is 100, where is that horse's emotions on that scale? And if you're an instructor, where are your students' emotions on that scale? Because for me, like if I'm breaking in a horse or re-breaking a horse, to me, if they buck, bolt, or rear, or blow, I have not done my job properly because I have not read that horse's emotional state of being, and I've let those emotions rise and rise and rise until they blow. The pressure has got too much, and they don't have the skill set yet to deal with that, and they explode. And when we explode, when the horse explodes, it does damage. Think of it like a volcano, okay? It will leave destruction behind, and that can take a long time to repair with the trust with the horse, teaching them to not be afraid. If we end up hurting our friend or our loved one, or we physically end up doing damage, I have a lot of girls that come through my program that not only get verbally explosive when their emotions blow, but they also get physically violent when their emotions blow too. So I'm going to talk you through how I deal with my own emotions so that I never get to that blowing point. And you know, occasionally it will slip, but now because I've done so much work on it myself, it takes something really, really big for those emotions to really rear their ugly head and gain control of me. And then anytime that does happen, that's a clear sign that I have some work to do. And you know, it's so easy for us to say, well, such and such did it, they made me, all right? Whether it's someone who said something unkind to us, or someone who has deliberately done something mean, the reality is, guys, it's our responsibility how we behave, how we act, and how we deal with our emotions. And anything that we do is absolutely no one else's fault or responsibility, regardless of what they do. And I'm not interested in the blame game, I'm interested in the responsibility game. It's not your horse's fault, it is not your parents' fault, it is not your friend's fault, it is not the world's fault, it is us and us alone. It is our responsibility to control ourselves, and that takes time. First of all, we have to recognize what are the areas in our life that we are more prone to over stimulation with. And we've just been through the Two Wolves talk. And if you haven't listened to it, please stop and go and listen to it, because everyone will have different things that they naturally struggle with. And what I might find difficult in life, someone might never ever have a problem with, okay? We're all made up differently. And if you are not aware of what your biggest strengths are and what your biggest weaknesses are, you will never be able to address this problem, and the same cycles are going to keep on going. And it is so important in the horse world. If you want to be a trainer, the first and foremost thing you have to learn to do is get control of your mind and get control of your emotions, because otherwise we will act out and we will destroy all of our hard work with our horse, and it can happen in a split second. The same if you're a parent, the same if you're a friend, the same if you're a spouse, the same if you have a pulse. Okay, so I believe this is for everyone, and this is just how I find it works really well. So I'll use myself as an example. I get frustrated very quickly by nature, and I get angry very, very quickly by nature. And I just, on that note, want you to understand that it's nothing to be embarrassed about, because we put shame as a society on certain type of emotions. Like when I talk about jealousy, people find that there's stigma around that, like that's something to be ashamed of, and that's something to not acknowledge if we're feeling that. The same with anger problems, the same with depression or sadness problems, or anything like that. So there is no stigma. We are who we are. We're going to embrace and accept that, and to learn to develop our strengths so that those emotions don't ever get to blowing point. Because here's the thing, if we allow them to get up to blowing point, you won't be able to control them. So this is where we're looking at preventing them from ever getting there, rather than trying to fix things when they do. So what we have to learn to do is we have to feel when we start to get a tiny bit angry, okay? And I have unrealistic expectations. It's just part of who I am. I always feel like I can get 5 days worth of work done in like a day, and then that doesn't happen. And when our expectations don't go to plan, say my expectation is that if I put X amount of time into my horse, then they should be at a certain level and they should be behaving in a certain way, and that I should have X, Y, and Z results back. The danger with expectations, okay, is that they are setting us up for huge failure and for emotional charged energy to come into us, which is going to lead to us blowing if we don't deal with it. And I'm not saying don't have any expectations or hope. I'm just saying you need to have the right ones. And so if any time I start to feel slightly upset or angry or frustrated because things aren't going my way, let's say I thought I would get 5 horses ridden today, 2 horses shod, and I was going to go and pick up some hay and some feed and then go and see a friend for dinner. Let's just say I'm working on these horses and we're having a really hard day, and then the mailman comes and they take up more time, and before you know it, my day's nearly gone and I don't have enough time to get stuff sorted. So when our expectations are broken, the way we thought life was going to be, or a situation was going to be, or a person was going to behave, what happens is we get frustrated, okay? And then that leads to, and disappointed, and then that left unchecked will lead to anger. So you need to understand where that emotion is stemming from. So for me, what I want to do is, if we have a scale of 0 down here and 100, which is blowing point up here, is anytime I start to feel emotional charge of anger start to rise in me, I need to recognize it and I need to bring it back down. And it's not that I do this one time. I might have to do this 100 times a day. And here's the thing, we are creatures of habit, yeah? So every good habit and every bad habit, they've both been trained. Whether intentionally, which is you're aware of it and it's on purpose, or unintentionally, meaning you have no idea that you're even doing it, yeah? And these habits are developed one by one, all joined together over time. And I don't have it here now, but I used the analogy and the comparison of one little kitty cat kibble or dog kibble for like a little chihuahua, and that represented one thought. And by itself, it doesn't amount to much, but if we have 10 thoughts, 100 thoughts, 1,000 thoughts, and we do that in a day, and then we times that by a week, and then by a month, and then by a year, you have trained yourself tens of thousands of times to do a certain thing, or you've fed that bad habit tens of thousands of times. So it's all these little things that add up. So anytime I start to feel my frustration or anger grow just a tiny bit, and that means we have to start to intentionally, and intentionally is the word, yeah, become self-aware. And so what you can do is, I know it sounds super airy-fairy and a little bit hippie-like and all the rest of it, but I promise you there is truth and value to this, and it is very simple. You're going to take a really big, deep breath in, and you're going to hold it for 5 to 7 seconds, and you're going to take that big, deep breath out again. And we do this the moment we start to recognize our emotion, whatever that emotion is, jealousy, It could be sadness, it could be anxiety, and anxiety is a huge one. It could be fear, it could be anger or frustration, like all of these emotions that when left unchecked leads to us becoming out of control and actually behaving in a destructive way, hurting ourselves or hurting other people. So especially like if you're on a horse or working with an animal, I get my clients to do this all the time, and especially if they've lost their confidence, okay? So any time is the key that anxiety starts to come up or that emotion, stop, recognize, I am feeling angry. I am feeling hurt. I am feeling sad. I am feeling frustrated. I am feeling jealous. I am feeling whatever it is. And then we're going to take that big deep breath in. We're going to let it go. And then what that actually does is it takes the emotional charge away from that emotion. And it will bring that pressure back down to the reset line, to the 0 line, okay? And I want you to understand it will be very difficult at the start for you to do that because you already have a habit. You already have neural pathways developed in your mind that as soon as something happens that triggers you, and you might have 10 or 20 or 30 of these little things that keep on building, you blow and then you feel better. Okay, because we feel better when pressure is released. But we need to learn to recognize it when it's small and deal with it on a tiny level. Because here's the thing, it is very, very easy to bring yourself back from 10%, 20%, or 30% back down to 0. It's very easy to control that and to hit the reset button. So I actually term this as hitting the reset button with my students and with my riders by stopping, acknowledging, taking that deep breath in and letting it out. It takes the emotional charge and energy away. It will bring you back to 0, but it also takes the physical charge out of your muscles and out of your body as well, because wherever the mind goes, your body goes as well. And what you'll find without even realizing or being aware of it, because it happens subconsciously, your muscles will start to actually get energy and charge in them, and you'll start to grip. Your muscles will start to grip on. If you're riding, you'll start to clench. So we're hitting the reset button. And here's the thing. You might have to do this 100 times in a row because you have such an established habit there, and it is so big right now, okay? So other things we can do when we're starting to get angry or frustrated is to check our expectation. Why am I feeling this way? So what's happening? I'm getting frustrated. Why? Because my horse is spooking, or my horse is refusing, or my horse, we have gone backwards, we're not doing what we should be doing. And then we need to reset, we need to reset our expectation on, did I come out here with the right expectation of my horse? Did I come out here with the right expectation of what I can realistically get done in a day? And did I allow any time for the custard to hit the fan, for things not quite going right? Because we all know that that happens. And then we actually need to stop and to make sure that we reset and realign those expectations. And that might mean that we actually don't book so many things up in that day. That might mean instead of only allowing a time slot of 1 hour for that horse, that we go out there with, hey, I have no expectations of this horse today or of myself. Apart from that, we go out there and we do the very, very best that we can with what we both have today. Because the horse that you have today might not be the horse that you had yesterday, and it's unfair to expect him to be, and you will set both of yourself up for failure that way, okay? And the same with us. Maybe you're getting angry and frustrated at yourself because you know what you should be doing, yet your body just doesn't seem to put it into the practice, right? Like, oh my gosh, I know my heel should be down. What's my problem? And we get angry at ourselves because we're not performing in a certain way. or we're not learning fast enough. So is your expectation realistic, and are you setting yourself up for failure? So yeah, anytime I recognize that, I bring it back down. And guys, whatever you practice, you will get good at. And this is the thing, and it won't happen overnight. I know for me, it was really hard for me to stop blowing, and I wouldn't necessarily blow at other people, although that did happen a long time ago. But I would just lose it internally. I would be frustrated for the whole day. I would say a whole lot of sailor cuss words and maybe kick the ground. Like I'm super emotional by nature, and I feel things on huge big pendulums, like hugely happy, hugely sad, hugely frustrated. I have quite a black and white personality, and that's great. And our biggest strength in life is often also our biggest weakness if we leave it unchecked as well. So my ambition and my motivation to do so much and get so much done, that's great. That's a huge strength, but it can also be a big weakness if I don't manage that properly, give myself the right time, and if I'm too hard on myself, because then I become my biggest enemy, all right? So if you ride horses, the best thing that I can tell you to do is recognize what those wolves are and when you end up causing damage, and then before you go and ride, like before you even go and get your horse, stop and take a deep breath and actually come back to a neutral level, so that you're starting, before you even go and get your horse, you're actually starting on a calm line. So whatever's happened that day, if you had a rough day at work, if your boyfriend left you, or if your guinea pig bit your finger, or like whatever dumb stuff happened, or you were frustrated at school, or some jerk cut you off and, you know, nearly made you crash, we're actually leaving that behind, and we're starting from a neutral point before we even go out there. Because it's these daily occurrences and the daily things that start to build up. Because what happens if we let that continually rise and build up, and we're not bringing it back down again, you'll get to a point like 80%, right, maybe even 70%, where you are so emotionally charged and wound up that you can no longer control those emotions anymore, and you will end up behaving in a really bad way that will leave you feeling embarrassed, that will leave you feeling hurt, that will leave you feeling really, really sucky, because you've just gone and blown, all right? And then it's like, oh, I feel like such a bad person because I lashed out on my horse, or I lashed out on my child. And here's the thing, I won't continue ever, and I won't let my students continue until they come back to that point. So if they just stop and take a deep breath and they let it out, and they're like, okay, I'm good to go again. And I'm like, clearly you're not. And I'm careful, like I don't want to rub their nose in it and be sarcastic, because I know it's hard. Or even for myself, maybe we just have to stop for 10 whole minutes until we are completely and utterly back to a neutral, resetted level again. And you're not wasting time, because on day one, that might take you 10 minutes, or it might take you half an hour. I mean, gosh, it might take you an hour. Like, I don't know how wound up you are emotionally, or how sad you are, or whatever it is. But whatever we practice, we get good at. And the next time we go out and we take the time to properly, completely reset, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier. And before you know it, the amounts of times that you're actually blowing gets less and less and less and less, and you become more aware of how you're feeling and the emotional charge going on in you. You have more control, and honestly, it's a really, really awesome place to be. But you have to want to change, because you can say that you want to change, but if you're not putting these practices into action, nothing is going to happen, yeah? And it's the same with my horse. Like, if all I do in my lesson is I go out there, and sometimes I can promise you I have to do this with Goldrush because he can be quite hot by nature, which I love. It's an amazing strength with him, and he's hypersensitive, which is wonderful. I think without it, we definitely couldn't jump the heights that we do, so it's a huge blessing, but that has to be managed. And every time I ride him, I'm constantly bringing those stress levels back down, all right? And if all I can do in a lesson, because he's not coming back down that day, is walk and halt and, you know what, then that's all I've got to do. And I'm okay about that because I know that actually taking those steps backwards, get out of here, flies. Taking those steps backwards is actually setting me up to be able to go forwards. And there's a really cool analogy about ballroom dancing and how that works with our progress with anything in life. And I use it with horse riding a lot as well. We feel like our forward steps are positive and like we get excited about that. We feel like we're doing good. But then we have those sideways steps, okay, where we're not making progress, but we're not going backwards. We're just kind of staying in the middle, moving side to side, and we feel like, ho hum, okay, well, that's okay, but it's a little bit negative. And then we have these backward steps, yeah? So backward steps in the horse world would be, I have a horse that jumps a meter confidently and we're doing really good. And I've had 5 lessons in a row that have all been fantastic. And then we go out to ride the next day and all of a sudden we're back to doing the basics of walk, trot and canter, establishing, getting control again and bringing that horse's anxiety down. That would be classed as a backward step. And this is where people get really upset and really frustrated because they feel that if they have made forward progress, that any time they move backwards, it's a negative thing. Okay, so the expectation is if we progress forwards, we only progress forwards and we don't go back. But that expectation as well, it's really setting us up for failure and to get frustrated, to get disheartened, to get angry at our horse and to behave in a way that is actually going to cause damage to the relationship and our horse or to ourselves. And taking backward steps for us could be we aren't keeping our cool, we're not as patient today as we normally are, we're not learning how we normally would, or we're making mistakes. But here's the thing, riding horses and progress, it's not a straightforward motion, and nor should it be, because when we're ballroom dancing, we take steps forward and we take steps back and we take steps sideways. And it's all part of this beautiful thing called dance. And it's all elegant. And as long as you're on that dance floor, whether you're going forward or back or sideways, it's all progress, okay? Because whatever we practice, we get good at. And when we can take that and realign our expectation that, you know what, as long as I'm coming out day after day and doing the very best I can with what I've got now. Whether it's I'm not functioning very well today, so I'm just going to do my best. Whether it's I'm not learning very well today, but you know what, I'm just going to do my best. You know what, my horse is really terrified today, or the wind is under his tail and he's acting up, but you know what, I'm just going to do my best by my horse and by myself. And when we are consistent with this, I tell you what, you will see results and you will improve and you will reach your goals, and you will do it in a way where you don't set yourself up for failure emotionally, okay? Because when we blow, we actually take 10 steps back. When we get angry at our horse and we're not giving them compassion and understanding and guidance and kindness, all right, we're sabotaging ourselves and we're sabotaging our future success. So I just want to encourage you guys, prevention is better than cure. How do we deal with anxiety and fear and anger and all of those types of things? Number one, understand what you're feeling at the time. Stop, acknowledge it, take that huge big deep breath in the moment, let it back out again. Do that as many times as you have to until you can reach a neutral level, and everything stops. You're not riding anymore, you're not driving, even if you have to pull over safely on the side of the road. Stop what you're doing, turn the TV off, take a moment, actually feel what you're feeling, bring yourself back down again, and then proceed. Because whatever you practice, you get good at. It's going to take time, but success belongs to the relentless and the patient. Good luck, guys. See you next time.